Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So just want to do a live stream prior to Thanksgiving. If I don't see you, happy Thanksgiving. But today I want to talk about what I realized after owning 54 units of real estate for 8 years now. And I hope to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And kind of what I expected going to real estate versus the reality of today and specifically in 2025. So when I first got started in real estate, my mindset was to buy any type of real estate that I could afford. At the time, I was living in the Bay Area, which is a very, very expensive market. When I got started in 2017, a cheap house was $800,000, right? And this is buying in the East Bay Area, because if you buy in the Bay Area, like San Jose, Santa Clara, Mountain View, everything's like, I think 1 million to 1.5 million at the time. So my price point was $800,000. And why I picked $800,000 is because I thought I could save 10% down, which is 80K. So I just looked at the different markets. So I would look in San Jose, um, it was too expensive. Looked in Milpitas, too expensive. Looked in Santa Clara, it's too expensive. Then I went, more east. I looked in Pleasanton, it's too expensive. Dublin, too expensive. And I came across Livermore, which is where I ended up buying my first deal, right? That I still own to this day. But my mindset back then was I didn't know about out of state investing. I didn't know about Burr. I didn't know about bigger pockets. I didn't know about real estate investing. None of my parents invest in real estate. None of my friends invest in real estate. I didn't really know much, right? I didn't use YouTube for education and all that. I honestly just wanted to buy a house 10% down and rent out the rooms, which ended up being house hacking. So I ended up house hacking my first house. And like I said, I didn't even know what house hacking was at the time, if I'm being honest. I just wanted to buy a house, live in the master bedroom, rent out the other rooms because I was used to living with roommates. And then eventually, when I got married, had kids, family, whatever, I just would move these people out and live in the house myself. So that was kind of my mentality was I didn't want to pay rent. I just wanted to live in my own house. So that's how I got my first deal. And, I ended up getting a new job somewhere in 2019 and didn't want to make that long commute. I think it was like an hour and a half commute each way. So I just said, okay, well, um, I basically didn't want to drive an hour and a half. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to buy another house. I'm going to house hack it. And, I'm just going to live in the master, rent out the rooms in the master, or out the other rooms, and then rent out that last house that I just bought, right? So that's what I did for my second property. And then when I rented out the last property that I was living at, it was cash flow negative. I think I was paying about 4,500 bucks a month, and my rent. No, I was paying 4,200 bucks a month. My rent was 3,700, so it's actually negative 500 bucks a month, despite self management and not factoring in capex, maintenance, reserves, right? So that's just pure based on the PITI. But I just thought that's okay. I can afford 500 bucks negative on this property. I'm living in this new house that I house hack, and my expense to live there is only 1,000 bucks a month. So I just thought between these two houses, I'm paying 1,500 bucks a month to live, which is very, very cheap in the Bay Area. Like a one bedroom in the Bay Area, it's probably $3,000 to $4,000. Especially if you're in San Francisco, it's maybe closer to $5,000. So I just thought, okay, I just put another 10% down. So this property is 1.1 million. So I put about $100,000 down. And why did I choose this price point? Because I just thought I could save $100,000, right? And it's just through W-2. Didn't come from a rich family. Didn't have inheritance. Just purely W-2, right? Like I literally just made, I think, over $200,000 as a pharmacy director, and I lived like I was a poor college student, right? So that was the mentality that I always had, and I had a very large savings rate. I was probably saving 50, 60, 70% of my income, which I would allocate towards my real estate, right? So that's how I got started, right? And then I did that again for another house hack, but I quickly learned two things from house hacking. So it was a great way for me to get started to take the move to buy real estate. But what I learned was, wait a second, like I cannot retire from my W-2 if all my real estate I'm buying is cash flow negative. If each property I'm owning is negative 500 bucks a month, despite me self-managing it, not factoring in capex, repairs, vacancies, like this is no way to retire. And don't get me wrong, like the properties have appreciated very well, especially during COVID. Like the first house I bought for 800, is now worth $1.4 million today. So appreciate 600K. Me doing nothing, honestly, chalk it up to luck slash taking action, and persistence. But I just said that this is no way for me to scale. This is no way for me to retire. And, um, you know, I kind of want to do real estate more seriously, right? So that was kind of like the bug that I kind of got. And in my mind, at least at the time, I thought more units means more cash flow, right? But if you fast forward to today, not always the case, right? Not always the case. More units doesn't necessarily mean more cash flow. It can definitely mean more headache, but not necessarily more cash flow. Um, so I was just like, okay, well, like I don't really know much. Like I just buy in my backyard. Obviously, like California's expensive, and like I want to buy out of state. I heard the Midwest was cheaper, so I would listen to Bigger Pockets, YouTube, went Bigger Pockets forum, and I just was researching markets, and I came across Huntsville, Alabama, where if you follow my channel, I own three there now. Or sorry, I own one. I just bought another one. Another one's still under contract, right? So I just said, okay, Huntsville. I didn't know much about it. I just kind of knew that my cousin went there a lot because he's in aerospace. My dad's an aerospace engineer. I almost became an aerospace engineer. So I just said, okay, well, there's a bunch of aerospace engineers going there, and you can look at the metrics of Huntsville, but like the medium income is six figures. And they have good school districts there. There's a lot of space activity there. I think Space Command's moving there, recently. But there's a lot of things going on. There's population growth, there's job growth, there's rental demand. So that really appealed to me. And I was just like, wait, I can buy a 250K house that rents for $2,000. And if you look at the 1% rule, it's almost a 1% rule. So things started to click for me. I was like, wait a second, I can buy a brand new house, brand new construction for 250K, put 25% down. At the time it was COVID, so my interest rate was like, 3.4%. Um, and then from there, I literally, um, talked to a property manager who was also my realtor. She told me that it rents for $1 per square foot. So if it's 2,000 square feet, it's going to rent for $2,000. So you underwrite the numbers and all that stuff. And in retrospect, I probably underwrote poorly, as we all do. But I underwrote the numbers and just said, wow, I could make about 500, $600 a month in cash flow, assuming it's rented out. But, you know, one thing I miscalculated in Huntsville is the vacancy. So if your unit turns over, it takes about 2, 3 months to rent it out, right? So that's 2, 3 months of lost income. So ideally, you want tenants on like 2, 3 year leases, because you don't want that vacancy. You don't want to turn the units and deal with all that headache. So that's what I kind of did. So I just thought, okay, these numbers look nice. Like, hey, I could put 80K down for 250K property. That's 25% down. I can cash flow 500, $600 a month. Let's just call it, not factoring in capex and vacancy and all that. So really, maybe it's break even in hindsight. I said, wow, this is more scalable, and plus, I don't have to live with people anymore. Like at that point, I was like in my 30s, early 30s, and then I didn't want to live with people anymore, right? I had a girlfriend who's now my wife, and I don't want to like rent out a room. Like even in my where I'm living right now, I don't really want to live in a room unless I really have to, right? Unless I maybe lose my job and real estate goes poorly, and then I need more money, then of course I'd be scrappy enough to rent out my room, but not, you know, if I had a choice now, I wouldn't do that, right? I'd rather buy a duplex, live in one unit, rent out the other unit. So at least I have my own walls, my own privacy, and all that stuff, right? Um, so that's kind of what I thought. So I just thought, okay, I bought out of state. So I literally bought in Huntsville, Alabama, and to this day, I've never been to Huntsville. I've been to Alabama one time, because I bought a mobile home park there, but I've never been to Huntsville. I need to make a trip out there still, but I've owned real estate there for almost 5 years now. I've never stepped foot into Huntsville, and now I'm going to own three there, right? So I just said, okay, well, I bought a property out of state. It blew my limiting belief, right? That I could buy something out of state. I've never been to Huntsville. I've never seen the property. It could be a Ponzi scheme. Maybe I don't own real estate there. Who knows? In my mind, I do. Um, but I basically got this deal, never been there. I did my inspection virtually, so I never even stepped foot in the property. And overall, I think it's done pretty well. Appreciate it a little bit, not as crazy as California. The rents actually declined on me for a little bit, so it went from like 2,100 to 2,000 and 1,900. So that's not a good thing, obviously. And it's really um, just that mindset shift for me. Like just buying something out of state in an area I've never been in, that just kind of blew my mind. So I just said, okay, well, how do I scale this? Because now like I want to take this even more seriously. I bought in state in California. I bought one out of state for the first time. And now how do I scale this? So this is when I went to multifamily, right? So I joined a multifamily mentorship, learned that the value of multifamily versus single family, I hope you guys know. So single family, the value is based on the sales comps. So if my house here, if the neighbor's house of mine sells for $1 million, mine's worth $1 million. It doesn't matter how much rent mine rents out for. Mine can rent for 1,000, theirs can rent for 10,000. When we sell it, because it's a single family home, which is 1 to 4 units, the value is based on sales comps, not based on income, right? But once you do 5+ units and you get a commercial loan, the value is based on net operating income divided by the market cap rate. So if your NOI is, let's just call it $1,000 a month, so the NOI is net operating income is income minus expense. So if your NOI um, before debt service is $1,000 a month versus someone has an NOI of $2,000 a month, assuming the same cap rate, the one that's a 2,000 NOI, it's worth double. So for better or for worse, it's more in your control. So if you're a good operator and you can raise the NOI, you raise the value. If you're a bad operator or going through a tough time, your NOI goes down, the value goes down. And what people don't realize too is with multifamily 5+ units, the cap rates is influenced by interest rates. So when interest rates are lower, cap rates are lower. If cap rates are lower, your value is higher. But interest rates have been high since 2022. So if interest rates go up, then cap rates go up, values go down. So this is what happened to a lot of syndicators um, that happened, right? So syndicators that syndicated in during COVID, 2020, 21, 22, what did they do? They bought multifamily with low interest rates, 3%, 4%, lower cap rates. And in 5 years, because in commercial loans, there's a balloon payment. So it's a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year balloon. I did 10-year balloons, thankfully. So I locked in 4% for 10 years. But people did 5-year balloons. And guess what? If you buy in 2020, it's now 2025, your balloons due. And when your balloons due, your new interest rate, if you do a refinance with a new lender, it's going to be 7% plus a higher cap rate. So your value is going down. So um, with multifamily, and I'm feeling it too, to be honest, is the NOI is going down because number one, rents have been stagnant or going down a little bit, but most of my properties rents are stagnant. But expenses are going up, property tax is going up, insurance is going up, repairs are going up, right? Like I joke now that my plumber and my HVAC guy makes more money than me on my 20-unit apartment complex. Like it's better to be my plumber or my HVAC guy for my 20 unit than to own the 20 unit right now, right? But this is a phase where I'm just gonna hit a bunch of capex. So, so for better or for worse, multifamily, if you're a good operator and it's good conditions, you can make a lot of money. But if you're a bad operator in bad conditions, you can lose money. So that's the beauty of single family. You could be a bad operator and the value is based on the sales comps, right? So, that's why I kind of own both. And I'm trying to understand or analyze like, do I want to continue buying multifamily or am I okay just with single family where the value is just based on the market, right? And not based off my skill as an operator. Um, so that's kind of the thought process that I'm having. So I just thought, okay, at the time, so this is 2020, Stephen, more units, more cash flow, right? And I want to buy in a cheaper market. So that's when I went to Oklahoma. Um, I went to Oklahoma and I've never been to Oklahoma until I literally bought my first apartment complex there. I literally got the apartment under contract, booked my flight to Oklahoma. That's the first time I've been to Oklahoma. That's the only time I've been to Oklahoma. I still need to go back to Oklahoma as well, right? But I bought an off-market 26-unit apartment complex for $500,000 was my contract price. And this blew my mind because in California, I can't even buy a condo for $500,000. And if I did buy a condo for 500,000, it'd rent for 2,000 in California. But I was just like, wait a second, I'm buying a 26-unit for 500,000. The rents day one were $8,000 a month, but the owner owned it for like 20 years. He never raised the rent for 5 years. So the average rent was 350, believe it or not. Like 350 is not even my HOA, right? My HOA right now is 600. But like literally, the rent was 350, and I knew if I came in there and I renovated the unit to have LVP flooring, to have no popcorn ceilings, new kitchen cabinets, quartz countertops or laminate countertops, bathtub kits. Um, so it's really like in my mind, I was like, wait, I can just spend 10,000 renovation. I can raise the rents from 350 to 700, which is still below market rents because a one bedroom in Oklahoma rents are about 800, 900. A two bedroom is closer to 1,000. I just want 700 to 800. Those are kind of the rents I was aiming for, which is still about 10% to 50% below market because I knew it was an older asset, even though it was renovated on the inside. So literally, I came in there, had $8,000 of cash flow day one, but obviously the purchase price was 500,000. But one thing people didn't know, and something that like shocked me too, was insurance costs so much more for apartments than it does for a single family. So, for example, today I pay 10,000 bucks a year for my insurance on my 26 unit apartment complex, and I pay 12,000 for my 20 unit. But for this single family home I'm sitting in here, I bought this for 1 million, and my insurance is only like 1,000 bucks because it's a townhouse. But all my other single family homes in California, I paid 2,000 bucks, and the purchase price was closer to 1 million. My insurance on my Alabama properties are about 800, and I bought those for 250. Okay, so like insurance is way higher. And then obviously, like with apartments, you just have like way more turnover in apartments, right? Compared to a single family home. Like most of my single family homes in California, I've had the same tenant since. I've only had one tenant. But in when you own apartments, there's more churn. So when you have churn, what happens? You're vacant. You have to do touch up paint, do some repairs. It's vacant. Advertise it, get it rented out, and it might take them a month or two to move in to that new house. So, like, there's just so much expenses associated with that, right? And then, like, imagine, like, if you own, I own 46 units between two apartments, like, that's 46 toilets. That's at least 46 tenants, 46 HVAC units. And if you have a 1960s property, the HVAC's going to break more frequently, the plumbing's going to break, electrical issues. That's why I said, and I joke half-heartedly that my plumber, my HVAC guy, they make more money than me with the apartments. Um, so for me, I thought more units equaled more cash flow because I just, if you listen to podcasts, they say about, 150 to 200 bucks per door. And if you have 50 doors, quote unquote, you should be at 10K a month, right? All said and done. But like I said, there's just so many variables going there. And then you have property management, and maybe property manager, they can start off good and then they can get bad and you have to like fire them and get a new property manager. So like there's just a lot of work that goes into that multifamily. Right? But at the time in 2020, my mindset was just buy apartments, get the skills, get the experience. So I just bought whatever I could get, right? So I got my 26 unit for 500,000. I got my 20 unit for 350K. And now fast forward to today, like so now fast forward 4 or 5 years later, like how's it doing? My 26 unit. I caught my LeBron James, my Stephen Curry, my real estate portfolio. It's carrying the team. But like even recently, I've been hit with like more capex, some evictions, plumbing issues, HVAC issues, right? So like if this property is like not doing as well, it's not supporting the other properties which are cash flow negative. In my 20 unit, um, just these past 3 months, I've been getting hit with like so much capex issues between plumbing, HVAC. It's basically really hot in Oklahoma, and then so all the HVACs get broken, and then you have to repair that, and then sometimes like it's kind of crazy to me, but you're spending like 500 bucks to replace an HVAC machine, which costs 500 bucks to get a brand new one. So why not just get a brand new one, right? So like you have to like talk to your property managers to make sure that they're doing things in a way that makes sense, right? Because a lot of times our property managers, they'll just pay for the bill. They don't care. They just want to solve the problem. Oh, plumbing issue, hire a plumber. They don't get multiple quotes. So you have to like constantly like check your P&Ls every month and talk to your property manager like, hey, like why'd you do that? Right? Or why was that my cost? So that's something that I've been more diligent on now that I'm not buying as much real estate and focusing on my real estate that I own is like I look at my statements every month diligently and like, wait a second, like why am I paying for like a hair clog that's caused by the tenant, right? Like make sure that be passed on to the tenant, or is it my bill? I mean, if it's my bill, so what? I'll pay it. But if it's not my bill and it's a tenant's fault, then do it. And a lot of tenants, we own real estate long enough, they make requests for the silliest things, like that little toilet flapper. Sometimes over time it kind of corrodes and it'll leak water, and then literally like it's like $5 to buy it on Home Depot, and you can just replace it yourself. But if you hire a plumber, it costs $100 to do it. So it's kind of interesting when you do that. But like now that I'm looking back, so like now, fast forward today, given my wisdom, looking back, like would I buy an apartment complex that the rents are so low? I think the answer would be no for me. Like for me now, the minimum rent I need per door is going to be at least 1,000 to 1,200 bucks per door. And why do I say that? Because let's say my 20 unit, I'm getting 500 bucks a month in rent. If I have one plumbing issue, that plumbing issue costs on average 300 bucks to 500. So literally, um, it's like the same cost. Like my rent is the same cost as like um, the repair. So it's like very eye-opening for me in that sense, where um, like what's the point, right? Like the cost to replace plumbing is the same whether your rent is 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So I'd rather be getting higher rents. So I think it was a great way for me to get started by buying these like cheaper properties with lower rents, but like moving forward in terms of scaling, in terms of having more lifestyle in terms of my real estate portfolio, um, it's like not worth it for me at this point, right? So that's why I'm constantly reassessing which ones I want to keep, which ones I want to sell, right? So it's becoming clear to me that I need to sell my 20 unit probably, and then for now keep my 26 unit, but monitor it closely to make sure it doesn't start performing like my 20 unit. At which point, I do need to sell it. So okay, I want to share all this because like, what's the realizations that I come across is that unit count doesn't matter as much as you think. It's more of a vanity metric, if I'm being honest. And I drank that Kool-Aid for a long time. I felt like I had a gun in my head. Felt like I needed to chase unit count, and it's more of a flex thing. But like once I scaled close to 100, I was like, this is not worth it. I'd rather just own the fewest number of units with the least amount of headache, right? So what's your financial fire goal with the least amount of headache, right? Like if I wanted to today, if I got sick of all my real estate, just sell it all, pay a lot of taxes, but overall it would still be positive. I can take that, dump it into the SP 500 and earn 7 to 10% and live out that 4% rule for the rest of my life, right? So like I can do that if I just want to be done with real estate and have a paid off house, right? I would live a very good life with a paid off house, living off the 4% rule off my portfolio if I sold everything. But I still want to try real estate for the next 5 years. And why 5 years is because that's when I hopefully retire from my W-2 job. Unless my YouTube blows up, unless when I become a real estate broker, um, and I start selling a lot of Lennar homes, if that becomes big, then maybe I can retire sooner, but I'm not banking on it. But I hope to keep you guys posted. Um, I'm trying to keep you guys posted, like on that journey of me becoming a real estate broker. I don't expect to sell a lot, but like I said, if I can sell a few, hey, why not? And then my YouTube, like you said, I don't expect to be big, but who knows? Maybe I'll blow up one day. um, but not really banking on it, right? But if I do, great. So for me, realistically, 5 years is when I'm hoping to retire from my W-2. Given this bleak outlook of 2025 going to 2026, maybe it might be 10 years, right? But I'm okay either way. Um, like I said, I did real estate to give me options in life. And, even if I had to retire, I'm 35 now. If I retire at 40 or 45, it's still relatively speaking younger than most people that retire. I know a lot of pharmacists that work till 70 plus, I think just because they want to. I'm not that type of person. For me, I'd rather, travel or just live life on my own terms and do things when I want, right? That's the whole reason why I went into real estate. And in that 8-year grind of scaling to my current portfolio, that message gets forgotten. I'll be honest. I forget that message a lot. And this pause has been nice to basically reassess my portfolio and reassess what my priorities are. And I need to remind myself. And I guess the reminder of me getting slapped in the face with a bunch of capex is, real estate is not passive. It's very active. And if you want a portfolio with the least amount of headache, then you basically need to um, you basically need to basically sell properties and own them free and clear, right? Like that's the only way, right? So like my portfolio, it's about I have a $10 million real estate portfolio. 5 million is debt, 5 million is equity. So I'm 50% LTV. A lot of my properties in California are break even slash negative cash flow. and they're carried by my apartments in Oklahoma, but my apartments in Oklahoma are not doing the greatest right now. So because of that, my overall portfolio these past few months has been negative, right? So actually, I'm grinding and stressing, and I have to pay money to own this portfolio. But I remind myself, like, with real estate, yes, if your negative cash flow is not great, but remember, you do have principal pay down, right? But like once again, you can't retire off of like negative cash flow and principal pay down, right? You have to um, basically have positive cash flow, or you have to start selling, um, basically start selling in order to start paying off debt. So like for me, the moves I need to make, and sorry if it's repetitive, but like I probably need to sell probably two properties, probably the first property I bought in Livermore in my 20 unit, and then use that to basically pay off my primary, and then use whatever excess money to build my two ADUs. And then maybe I sell another one to start paying off other properties. So at that point, I might have maybe $2 or $3 million in debt with, you know, so I'll drop down to maybe 30% loan to value, right? So that became very clear to me. And then at this point, and believe it or not, I'm the buy real estate guy. But like at this point, I hit the point where me buying more real estate is actually going to hurt me, not help me. Like me buying another unit, like if I went to 55 doors, it's not going to improve my quality of life. It's actually going to make me more leveraged, have another expense to worry about, another headache potentially. So actually, at this point, me simplifying and selling is going to help me achieve wealth, right? Because like I said, like why am I suffering, going through all the stress and grinding when I can literally sell everything? I can literally sell everything right now and pay probably 1 million to 1.5 million in taxes, pay off my primary, which is gonna be about 1 million, and dump the rest, which might be 3 to 4 to $5 million after it's all said and done, into the SP 500, earning 7 to 10%. And if I live off 4% of 5 million, that's 200K. So imagine that's 200K a year. What's that? 15, 16K a month. And my house is paid off. I'm only paying $2,000 to live here in LA. Like that's a pretty good life, right? I could literally retire in Vietnam like a king. Because 2,000 bucks a month in Vietnam, you can live very, very well, right? Especially like in Da Nang, which I just came back from. You can live very well there. So I can live part time here, travel there, not deal with any headaches. And yes, I'm gonna pay taxes because it's index funds, but like I realize that that's my option right now. So for lack of a better word, I don't want to mess this up, if that makes sense. Like a lot of success it's a combination of persistence, time in the market, and luck, right? So for me, since I bought a lot during 2017 to 2020, but what happened during COVID? COVID interest rates dropped, so everyone could refinance at a lower rate, and on top of that, home values skyrocketed, right? Like a lot of my homes in California, they skyrocketed. I did nothing. I'll be honest, I did nothing. I just rented to the same tenant, owned it, and the rents didn't really go up that much, but the value skyrocketed. Like I bought one for 800 and now it's worth closer to 1.4 and I did nothing. So, like knowing that it's part luck, part persistence, part time and market, like don't mess it up. Like you should only get rich one time. I don't want to be those people who get wiped off and then have to start over again. Right. So that's why I kind of came to realize that like at this point, me buying more doesn't help me. So that's why I need to I'm focusing more time and energy on optimizing my portfolio, tracking my expenses like a hawk, like every single expense now. I used to track more at a high level. Now it's like every expense, like why do we pay this plumbing bill? Right? Like, is this my bill or is this the tenant's bill? Right? Like just going that granular. So I increased how much I talk to my property managers now. It used to be once a month. And now it's probably maybe every 2 weeks or 3 times a month, depending on what's going on. So that's what I've been doing, and then a huge proponent of basically paying off my primary and then building these ADUs all cash, and just basically probably trim my portfolio down to probably like 35, 36 is probably my sweet spot. And then even then, maybe after I own my real estate for longer, I might realize, this isn't worth it anymore. I just gonna sell it, dump into the SP 500, and move on with my life, right? Like I've made enough wealth to live a good life and to basically be financially free. So I don't have to like do any more if I don't want to, but I'll take a stab at it for the next 5 years because I don't mind working the next 5 years. So kind of a TLDR. More units doesn't mean more cash flow. And it's okay. Like what got me started in real estate, house hacking, small multifamily where rents are, buying it for $500,000 or less and rents are like, under 500, like that helped me get started in multifamily. But if I were to buy one moving forward, I would buy one where the rents are at least 1,200 bucks a month per unit to make it worthwhile for me. So it might be fewer doors, but higher rents, right? So I'm now more optimized towards um, fewer doors, higher rents versus more units, lower rent. Because I used to think more units equals more cash flow. That's not the case, right? Um, and basically, that's kind of the mindset that I'm having. So like I said, I'm not. I'm grateful for me diving into real estate head first without knowing much, to be honest. And I'm still learning a lot along the way. And thanks to me taking action and basically having a high savings rate, working W-2, and just investing in real estate, combine that with a little luck, built up a large enough net worth for, like I said, I just dump an SP 500, live out the 4% rule, and have a paid off house. So, that's really what I kind of realized. And like I said, like in my mind now, I want to own the least number of doors that gives me my financial freedom number, right? So I want the least amount of doors, the least amount of headache in order to achieve my financial goal, right? And like I said, a lot of my properties have high equity, break even cash flow, lazy return on equity. So I need to mobilize that equity, maybe just sell it, pay the taxes, which sucks, and then just dump in the SP 500. So that's kind of my thoughts about owning 54 units over the past 8 years. Now I'm gonna start answering questions. So please start dropping questions in the comment section. I'll just start at the top. So Jay Cook, I see you own 27 units, which is half my portfolio in New England. So keep in mind, I do own 54 units, but 46 of it is in Oklahoma, which I bought collectively. One was 500K, one was 350. So that's 850K, but I did put in about 300 to 400K of renovation on my 26 unit. And then I did put in about 150K on my 20 unit. How did I fund those renovations and the down payment? I did a huge cash out refinance on my single family home portfolio, which makes it cash flow negative now. And I used that to basically fund my 26 unit, my 20 unit, as well as my mobile home park, which I made a video on, and a recent video, and how I lost $100,000 on that deal, and still have about 400K plus trapped in that deal as a second note position at 5%. So like I said, don't fixate on unit count. I wish someone told me this when I started off. Like if you own 27 units that have way more cash flow than me, that's less headache, all the power to you. Don't chase unit count, right? And like what I hate too is a lot of syndicators say, "Oh, I own like 1,000 units." No, you syndicate. You own like 2% of 1,000 units. You have to work with partners. You have to deal with your investors. Like that's not the type of business that I want to do. I have no interest in syndicating. I don't even have a private money lender, right? I have no interest in that. I'm just okay working my W-2, saving money, and buying a house, and eventually maybe selling to do a 1031 exchange or sell it, break the piggy bank, and then use that to pay off debt, right? I'm perfectly fine with that. Travel man, happy Thanksgiving. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. So how do I find my agent in Huntsville? That was through Bigger Pockets forum. So I actually posted on Bigger Pockets, and the property manager slash realtor reached out to me, and I just had a conversation with her. And so far it's been okay. I have one deal with her since 2021, and I bought two more. So we'll see how it goes in that market. But like I said, I'm not, I did buy two this year, but I'm not planning on buying any more for a long time. If anything, I'm going to be selling real estate between selling my own real estate. And then once I become a real estate broker, I'm only going to sell the NAR homes, new construction in California, Alabama, Oklahoma. So I'm plugging myself here shamelessly. If you want to buy a new construction home in Alabama, California, Oklahoma in about 3 to 4 months when I become a broker, keep me in mind, right? I can help you buy deals like the deals I bought in Huntsville. I see emails. I bought 8 units out of state in Louisiana. Terrible experience. Property manager was terrible. Tenants were terrible. So I can relate. I bought a terrible deal in Selma, Alabama, my mobile home park. I had terrible offsite property management, which was stealing from me probably. I had terrible on-site property management, who was probably a druggie, stealing from me as well. So I lost $100,000 on that deal, and I have 450K trapped in that deal, which I'm hoping I get maybe middle of 2027. So once I get that money, I'm probably going to use that to either A, pay off debt, B, throw in the SP 500, or C, use it to build my ADUs if it's not built by then. But when you go in real estate, you're going to deal with bad property managers. They're going to steal from, even my current property managers I think are good. They might be stealing from me, right? Maybe they quote me $2,000 to repaint one of my units, but they're baking in a $500 property management fee on top of that I don't even know about, right? This is very common with property managers. Like they'll quote you 2,000, but maybe they'll pay the painter 1,500 and pocket 500 for themselves. So this is just part of the experience. Like I said, that if you invest out of state, you don't self manage yourself. That's the cost, right? You're gonna get cheated, you're gonna get stolen from, you're gonna get lied to, right? That's just the cost of doing business versus the ones I self-manage myself in California. I know exactly what the costs are. I know exactly how things are. So I know a lot of people who they just self-manage their portfolio. You save on 10% of the property management as well as you're not getting cheated, but it's hard to scale, right? And now that's your new job. So for me, I like to find balance of, a lot of it out of state with property manager, knowing that they could steal from me, knowing that they could upcharge things. That's just the cost of doing business, unfortunately. And but yeah, I'm fortunate where my experience hasn't been so terrible so far that I still want to do real estate. But I know a lot of investors where they bought a deal, had a terrible experience, and they never want to do real estate again. Right. So, like I said, real estate's not for everybody, which is why I document my experience for everybody. Because, like I said, 9 out of 10 property managers are bad. So 1 out of 10 are good, but eventually that 1 out of 10, they may get complacent. They may steal from you. Who knows? Right. That's just the cost of doing business. Um, I see one tenant went to prison for murder on the day he was supposed to move in. His friend moved in and stole AC units from the other units, and it was a pain to get them out. That kind of feels like my Selma, Alabama mobile home park deal, where I literally had one tenant. He was having an affair with his neighbor, and then found out that that lady had a husband. I guess he didn't know it was an affair. Wanted to be more than a one night stand. And once he found out that she had a husband, he, I believe, stabbed her, um, and then was arrested. So yeah, this crazy stuff happens when you buy in rough areas, in bad neighborhoods, or even in good areas of good neighborhoods. Life happens, right? So when you own real estate, you deal with life problems, right? You deal with humans, and humans are flawed, and humans have a lot of problems. So fortunately, in Alabama, in Oklahoma, it's very easy to evict people. In Oklahoma, I can give you a 14-day notice if you don't pay, and usually they'll leave before we evict them because they don't want to damage their credit score or their rental history. In Alabama, if you don't pay me rents, which I have one tenant who didn't pay me 2 months of rent, I can send the district attorney after that tenant, and they will garnish the wages directly from their paycheck, but the district attorney will take 50% of it. So this tenant owes me 4,000, which is 2 months of rent. If I send the DA after, I'm working with her and waiting for the DA or waiting for emergency rental assistance to pay me. I hope she's not lying to me, but if she does lie to me, I'm going to send the district attorney after her, and they're going to garnish $4,000 from her wages, and then the DA will take half. So if they'll take 2,000, I'll get 2,000, right? Um, and then Oliver is saying it's a bad apple. So yeah, when you own enough real estate long enough, you're going to deal with fires, you're going to deal with evictions, you're going to deal with tenants dying in your property, either of natural cause or of crime. A lot of crazy stuff happens. They're going to steal from you. Anything that can happen will happen. Angel Ray, how many miles you got in your Tesla? Do you recommend it? I'm thinking of getting one. So I own my Tesla in 20 December of 2023, so about 2 years now. I bought it when when it dropped to its lowest price. I think I bought it for I think 43K or something like that all in, but I qualified for the federal tax credit of 7,500 because I was laid off 1 year, so my income was low. I have about 30,000 miles on it. I have autopilot. I like my experience. I charge at home. I have solar panels, so I don't really pay much to charge my car. The only repairs I've had to do is replace the sun visor because when it gets hot in LA, the sun visor mirror fell off. But I just put in a request online with Tesla, and it was covered under warranty. And all I did was rotate my tires, which was free. So I had no expenses so far on my Tesla. So I've enjoyed it. Um, but I have the Model Y. So the 3, I think it's too rough of a drive. The S is too expensive. The Cybertruck's too obnoxious, in my opinion. The X, there's no point in getting the X. So I think the Y is great. And my dad has a Tesla Model 3 that he owns since 2017. Not that many repairs on that. The only repair he made was changing his tires. And I think the battery that lights up the screen went out one day. So like one day, like the batteries didn't work, so you can't open your car. So you have to like put a request in for Tesla to fix that. So he liked this car. He just recently bought a newer Tesla Model Y. So I definitely like the car. It's very simple. and it's improved my quality of life. I'm waiting for the full self-driving to drop down to 4,000 before I buy it. Right now it's 8,000, or you can do $100 a month subscription. But right now I just have autopilot. So far I had a great experience. The autopilot and self-driving is getting better, I think, over time. So it's really up to you. But they are getting cheaper. And if you kind of wait right around now, I think it's a little bit cheaper because they want to get rid of inventory for the end of the year. So I see Nina Nguyen, might be my cousin that I'm unaware about. But I bought a single family home in 2021 in Oklahoma, and it was the best decision I made. Same tenants for almost 4 years. And you live in Oklahoma. So I uh, own a 20 unit and a 26 unit in Oklahoma. I see your question there. I own in Bethany, Oklahoma, which is my 26 unit, and I own a 20 unit in Enid, Oklahoma, which is about 90 minutes, I think, north of Oklahoma City. So I see you bought Edmond and Yukon. So I did advertise to those markets, but I didn't buy an apartment complex there. DJ, I see you're trying to sell your condo in Riverside. Um, I'm also trying to sell my 20 unit in Enid, Oklahoma. So maybe you can buy my 20 unit as well as DJ's condo in Riverside. We'll package our deals together to make it happen, right? So what year was my apartments built? They're 1960s. So they're I call them C-class apartments because they're older. They're 1960s, and then it's kind of like workforce housing. So my tenants are typically, professional workers looking for something more affordable. But when you have a 1960s property, what issues do you have? You have plumbing issues, you have HVAC issues, which is why I said my HVAC guy, my plumbing guy makes more money than me. So if I want my properties to do well cash flow wise, just become a plumber, just become an HVAC guy, and you can have a pretty good life. So don't write that profession off. You can't replace a plumber, an electrician, HVAC guy with AI. You can replace a pharmacist with AI, but not a plumber. Courtney, can we get some fresh content? It's repetitive. Yeah, I that's why I'm doing these live streams, because when you post every day like me, content gets very repetitive. But I feel like I kind of been doing a lot more philosophical content, and adding different spins on things. But I'm open to whatever questions you have. If you have video topics you want me to discuss, I'm a pretty open book in terms of building wealth, in terms of real estate, in terms of um, mindset, in terms of financial freedom. So like whatever topics. But yeah, when you start posting every day like me, it gets hard. You do get a little repetitive. But from what I learned, people need to be reminded more than they need to be educated. So for me, like I like being reminded a lot because I might have a different problem or different situation or different mindset at the time. So if I hear it multiple times, I might get a different clarity or a different revelation from that. It's just like reading a book. Like if I read a book 10 different times, each time I'll get a different nugget from that book, depending on my current situation. So that's why a lot of the educational content out there is very repetitive, if I'm being honest. Like I fall in that trap too. You listen to Bigger Pockets, it's very repetitive. But I'll try to spice it up. Hopefully, once I sell my 20 unit and I start building my ADU, um, at that point, I hope to film a lot of my content at my ADU while the construction is happening and just walk you guys through that process and, interview my general contractor. So hopefully it gives a little more fresh content. But yeah, it's a little bit dry. And as I said in multiple videos, building wealth is supposed to be boring, right? Building wealth is a very boring process. It's just a matter of pushing through. Because anytime I deviated from boring and did something stupid like buy a mobile home park, like start an e-commerce business, like start my own pharmacy, I lost money, right? So building wealth and real estate should be boring, right? It should be very, very boring, and that's when you know you're doing it right. Nina, so you bought a single family house for 180K, rented out for 1,600, 4% interest rate. So yeah, in Oklahoma, you hit the 1% rule, but the only downside of Oklahoma is it doesn't really appreciate. So from my experience, you make your most money, your most net worth, your most wealth from appreciation, whether that's market appreciation or whether that's forced appreciation. So most of my net worth is from forced appreciation, where I bought my apartment complex, fixed up the units, raised the rents to market rents, increased the NOI, and I doubled the value. So I made $800,000 of forced appreciation um, from my 26 unit apartment complex. From my single family homes in California, I bought it did nothing, it appreciated $100,000 every single year, right? Like I made $600,000 of appreciation on my first single family home that I bought in 2017 in the Bay Area. The same home I bought in Huntsville for 270, it's worth 320 right now. That's that's 50K of appreciation over 5 years. That's 10K a year on average versus 100K a year on average, right? But there's no right way or wrong to do real estate. If I could invest in my backyard, like if I lived in Oklahoma and that was my backyard, by all means, I would buy a lot in Oklahoma because you have an unfair advantage there. I interviewed one investor who lives in Oklahoma. I think his name's Cameron Burke. More so, he has a YouTube channel. Check his YouTube channel out. But he owns like 50 units in Oklahoma, and it's more of a cash flow market. But he's been trading up to commercial real estate, retail strip centers, bought land that he's gonna flip. So like just buy real estate where you have an unfair advantage, right? I had an unfair advantage in California. That's why I bought in California. I had an unfair advantage in Oklahoma because I had a good property manager there. That's why I bought in Oklahoma. I have an unfair advantage in Huntsville because I have a good property manager there. That's why I buy there, right? If you have an unfair advantage somewhere, buy there, right? So you can become very wealthy owning a lot of real estate in Oklahoma if that's your unfair advantage, right? Like I said, I wish I lived in Oklahoma because they pay pharmacists very similar to California, but it's very, very much cheaper to live in Oklahoma than it is to live in California. But there's not as much Asian food. That's the only downside, right? So take the good or the bad. Andrew, thanks for hopping back on, fellow pharmacist. Um, let's see here. What am I due to get back my second note position? So my second note position, the balloon's gonna be due, I think May of 2027. But I have a feeling, based on talking to the current owner, that they may extend. But if they do want to extend, I'm probably going to ask for a good chunk of the money back, right? Not all of it, but a good chunk of it back. And I'll be flexible. But ideally, I want all my money back because it's not always guaranteed. And it's only like 450K at 5% interest, so it's paying me 2,300 bucks a month. Like I said, I can dump in the SP 500, earn more money than that, and not deal with, um, this lender or this lien person. So, hope I get that back and I can use that to build my ADUs. I can use that to pay off my primary. I can use that to just dump in SB 500. My wife and I will only buy in state after we got burned. We own 3 rentals now. So yeah, like if I bought my first rental in Huntsville and it turned out badly, I'd be in the same boat as you. Like that's why I'm really glad that my first out of state went very well. Because if it doesn't go well, it deters you from wanting to do real estate out of state again, right? So if my first deal went bad and left a sour taste in my mouth, I would only buy in California. So I'm glad that it went well for me. So I think I would have had the same experience had I been burned on my first deal, right? So that's why I'm very fortunate I haven't been burned on my first deal. It took me to like my mobile park was my most recent deal. That's the one that burned me. Um, so very very fortunate that I didn't get burned and that I had the persistence to continue buying. Andrew, if you're not getting a 6% cash flow on equity, it's worth considering selling that property and dumping into SP 500. Yes, like something very fresh in my mind now that I'm tracking all my income, all my equity like a hawk now. Like, yeah, if it's like, if I let's just say I don't want to work anymore in 5 years as a pharmacist, I just can sell my properties, pay the taxes, pay Uncle Sam, pay depreciation recapture, hopefully do it when I'm not working W-2 so that my income's lower and just dump that into SP 500, which I have to pay taxes on, but it's super passive, right? I have a Vanguard index fund portfolio. 70% is VT Sachs, which is the total US stock market. 25% is international stock market. 5% is bonds. I don't really like bonds too much, but want some diversification. So that'll be my allocation for the 3. And I do own some Apple stocks. I do own some NVIDIA stocks. So I may dump like a little bit into NVIDIA and Apple stocks, but if you own the SP 500, NVIDIA and Apple stocks are included in there. So if you want to keep it simple, index funds, right? So like for me, if I'm sick of real estate, I probably would um, maybe just keep 3 total. So I'd keep my primary, I'd keep 2 more that I would want to own, and then I'd sell the rest, dump in the index funds, pay off my primary, and then just live off that 4% roll on the beach somewhere. Um, so, that's always an option for me. So like I said, in 10 to 20 years, I might be like Graham Stephan, where he's selling all his real estate. And for him, it's not worth dealing with that headache and owning homes. Cause I think he owns home in San Bernardino, which is a rougher area. and he owns homes in, I think, like Century City or Mid City, which is like West LA. And his properties are probably cash flow neutral or break even or a little bit of cash flow. And for him, he can make a YouTube video, make six figures on one YouTube video. I want to buy real estate too, right? I'd rather just make YouTube videos, make 100K, easier life, right? If I get to that point, maybe I'll be like Graham, where I'm just selling all my real estate, dump in SP 500, and just make YouTube videos and make money that way. Like, for me, I went to real estate because I thought that was the best way to make money at the time, and it still is the best way for me to make money at this time. But eventually, it may not be the best way for me to make money. At which case, I will sell and dump in SP 500 and just focus on what makes me money. So I went to real estate because I wanted to make money. I wanted to build up my net worth, and I wanted to retire early. So I just thought real estate was the best way to do it because I didn't think I was good enough at business, and still not that good at business, right? So it's okay to change your mind, right? As long as you buy right, you can hold it long enough to ride out the bad times. You can sell and make money, right? Despite paying taxes, despite all the fees associated. See question here. Hi, Stephen. I'm a single family home buyer in Houston, Texas. Seeing a lot of delistings and stagnant high prices. Are you seeing the same in the properties you're interested in buying right now? So I'm right now, I've just bought new construction in Huntsville. And what's beautiful about Huntsville is that you can negotiate these sellers because Lennar is very, very, very desperate. I have multiple videos about it, but Lennar is getting desperate because they want to get rid of their inventory. So Lennar has monthly goals, weekly goals, quarterly goals, annual goals. And if you kind of buy at the end of the week, end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year, and you're offering all cash or you're a strong buyer giving a large down payment, you can negotiate the price significantly. So what I did was, so this is crazy. So this is my Huntsville, Alabama property I just bought. It originally listed for, I think it was 307K, and they dropped the price to 295K because it was the end of the quarter. And since I'm coming in cash, I bought it for 200 and I think 56K was my I think my cash price. So they dropped it even further. And what I wanted to do was I want to do a lazy burr. So because the original price was 307K, I thought that it would appraise for around 330K based on the sales comps that I saw. So if it appraised at 330K and I bought it for, let's say, 260 all in, the burr strategy is you do a cash out refinance based on the ARV. So if it's 330K, 75% of that is about 260K, which is how much I'm all in all cash. So that's 260K. So I basically buy a deal with no money out of pocket. Maybe it breaks even, right? Because interest rates are higher. My interest rate's about 6.7%. And I can stack up a few of these deals and eventually sell half to use that half to pay off the other half. That was my strategy. But when I did my appraisal on this deal, it appraised at 307K, which was the original purchase price. So I thought I could only pull out roughly maybe I think it was 230. So I thought I was gonna leave 30K in the deal or something like that. But what's funny was the appraisal did come back at 307. So I thought that the 75% cash out refinance would be based off of that 307 ARV. But I just saw my loan documents today. So this is newer content, but the ARV was 330K and they're giving me 75% of 330K. So my loan is 248K. So now I'm only leaving 12K in the deal. So I just said, wait a second, like the lender just ignored the appraisal. Like I thought that the lender would do 75% cash out of the ARV or the ARV at most, whatever is lower. That's how they typically do it. So that's was my thought. But I looked at the loan. I'm like, wait, they just put the ARV of 330 on there. So I guess the lenders don't care because they underwrote the deal based on the cash flow, and the debt service coverage ratio they underwrote is about 1.28. So that means that the income produces 28% more than what my cost is. But that's how they underwrite. They don't factor in like capex, reserves, maintenance, occupancy, vacancy, all that stuff, right? They're just looking purely at the numbers. So to me, it was interesting. I'm like, wait a second, like even though my appraisal came back at 307, they're giving me the ARV of 330 and doing the cash out refinance based on 330. I'm like, well, what's the point of even doing an appraisal then? Right? I don't know, but maybe someone's incompetent, but I'm not complaining. I can pull out more money, right? So I'm happy with that. But I'm buying new construction, so like those prices are just going down, right? But what I'm kind of seeing in Huntsville as well is like the prices are pretty stagnant. But if you make aggressive offers on them, like just I say make an offer that makes sense for you. I've always been that way. Like if it's listed at 400, but the price of 300 makes sense for you, just make offer 300. Who cares, right? Make offers that make sense for you. If you think that Houston's going to crash by 30% in the next year, just offer 30% less than what you think the value is, right? Like the worst case, they say no, screw you. Like you guys understand how many offers I made for multifamily, and like a lot of them, they just immediately said no because that was just not their price. It's okay, you just move on, right? Or follow up later. That's why I say just make a offer that makes sense for you, and move on. That's why I tell people too who want to buy my 20 unit, I'm like just make me an offer that makes sense for you. If it makes sense for me, I'll accept it. If it doesn't make sense for me, I might counter you. If it's too far away, then I will say no. That's it, right? It's really that simple. Um, if I were to invest in real estate now, which market is attractive for you? So DJ, I like Huntsville because there's population growth. Space Command's going there. I can buy new construction for about 250 to 260 all in, and it rents for around 2000. So that's why I like Huntsville. And it's super passive if you get a good property manager. So that's a market I like, but you just want to pick markets where there's growth, where it's landlord friendly. So I just learned in Huntsville, Alabama, if you're an investor, they double your property tax. So the property tax rate was 0.32%, but for investors, they double it to 0.64%. So that just hit my mortgage statement because I escrow my property taxes. And I was like, why did my PITI go up so much? Because my property tax finally doubled because I'm an investor. So now my cash flow went down, right? So I do like Huntsville, but I think it's kind of a hybrid market. I think it slightly appreciates and there's slight cash flow. Oklahoma, it's just purely cash flow, no appreciation. California is all appreciation, no cash flow. So I think Huntsville, it's a nice hybrid market. That's why I'm kind of focusing on there. And I want newer assets. Like I want new builds, new construction. Don't want to deal with toilets and roofs and HVACs for the next 10 to 15 years. So I'm kind of over the older 1960s apartments that I own in Oklahoma because there's a lot of repairs, a lot of maintenance, a lot of capex, right? So, like for me, that's why I'm liking Huntsville right now. But I may change my mind later after I owned three properties there longer. The property I just bought recently, I got a 3-year lease on it, renting at 2150. I'm probably going to close on my next one, maybe mid to end of December or early of January 2026, depending on trying to go. Um, I'm trying to understand if I'm just out of touch with prices or people can't go any lower because they're kind of trapped in the price. So yeah, a lot of people, they overpaid for the property. So if they sell for too little, they have to go to the closing table paying money out of pocket. So imagine if my loan on my property was 200K and I sell it for 150, right? So I have to go to closing escrow and pay 50K. So that's why a lot of people don't want to sell. So that's why they do creative financing. That's what Pace Morby does. If you guys watch Pace Morby, basically, he finds distressed sellers, does creative financing, and then that's how he buys his deals, right? Or one way that he buys his deals. So a lot of times people are underwater. That's why they have to sell at that price because they overpaid in 2021, in 2022, 2023, and maybe the housing market went down. That's what's happening a lot in Austin, Texas. A lot of people bought high, and they can't sell without bringing money to the closing table, right? So that because it costs 10%, you have to pay 3% to realtor one, 3% to realtor two. Most realtors, from my experience, are useless. You have to pay the closing fees, you have to pay taxes, all that stuff, right? It's not cheap to sell real estate. Travel, Ming, do you mind sharing your agent property manager? Just send me an email. So click on my link tree, send me an email. Happy to connect you with my property manager. If you want to buy in Huntsville in 3 months, you can use me as a real estate broker. Happy to share where I'm buying my deals and where I'm looking to buy next. Do you think you'd be willing to retire from pharmacy early? Years in it being a high-paying profession makes me think it'd be difficult. So yeah, this is a question I juggle with a lot. Like I make over $250,000 as a pharmacy manager in California. It is a high cost of living area, but I'm probably paid in the top 5% in my profession. So it is hard to leave a profession that pays that much. But what's beautiful about pharmacy is that even if I were to retire early, let's say I retired at 40 years old, I'm 35 now. In 5 years, I decide to retire. I can always go back and do pharmacy again, right? Like pharmacy for the most part doesn't really change. that much. So I can always go back to work if I want to. But for me, pharmacy, it is very stable. It's very boring. Things don't really change much at all. Most pharmacists were very boring people. That's why I do real estate YouTube on the side, because trying to be less boring, for lack of a better thing. But most pharmacists were very dry, very boring. Um, so, I could leave, but I can always go back, right? Like I can always work. Um, I'm in leadership right now, but I can always work as like a contractor pharmacist and pick up gigs here and there. It's not hard, like if you're flexible. So it's okay for me to be like part-time, or I just can come back, or I can work as a consultant. So there's many options. If I retire early from pharmacy, so I'm not scared. And my job's to be replaced by AI anyways, right? In the next 10 years. So might as well enjoy the next 5 to 10 years before I get replaced by AI. And in which case I'll become a plumber, or I'll do HVAC, right? Because they make so much money. Um, let's see. Daniel, district attorney does not garnish wages, get a judgment, get a garnish order, hire debt collector. This is a waste of time. Learn and move on. That's true. If the tenant moves on, I did lose 4,000 from the tenant. It sucks, but at the end of the day, it's a drop in the bucket, right? So like I do get that, but my property manager is doing all that for me. So it's not wasting my time. It's wasting my property manager's time. So like I don't mind doing it, but yes, if it was, let's say me, like I had a tenant where I was house hacking. I think one day he left in the middle of the night and he owed me $1,000 in rent to rent the room. And like, I just went in his room one day after 3 days of not seeing him. I was like, oh, like he's gone completely. It was empty. And fortunately, he didn't trash the property. So I just said, you know what? I just moved on. It wasn't worth my time. Wasn't worth the effort. I don't want to go after this guy. Probably owns nothing to his name. So sometimes you gotta pick and choose your battles, right? So completely agree. Andrew, you own 8 units that cash flow 60K annually after expenses and saving 10K each year for future capex. So that's pretty good. That's about 5K a month, which was almost a pharmacist's salary, right? Depending on where you work. So that's pretty good. Like that's how I should have scaled my real estate, not go chaotic and buy 90 units of real estate at one point and buy in Oklahoma and buy in Alabama. So I'd say you did definitely smarter than me. I feel like I had a gun to my head, so I had to buy a bunch of real estate. But for better or for worse, my personality is I try, I fail, I learn, and I pivot. That's just the way I am, right? I've done that of everything, and it's helped make me successful, but makes my life a little harder and more stressful. So I hope to stabilize my portfolio to the point where I have a lot more paid off properties, and I can get about 120K or 10K a month um, in cash flow. And then at that point, basically, I don't really need to work at that point. Angel, how often do you increase rents? And if so, by how much? So for the properties that I manage myself, I increase rents every 2 years. And what I do is, let's just say my rents in California are 4,000, market rent is 4,500. I'll just look at the rents and I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna raise your rents to about 42 to 4,300, somewhere in the middle. I don't want to be market rents. I don't want to be way below market. So that's what I do. So that's, for me, the ones I self-manage every 2 years, I raise the rents. The ones in Oklahoma and Alabama, the property managers, they typically reassess the rents every year. Sometimes they keep the rents the same. Sometimes they raise the rents very little. Sometimes they keep the rents. They don't lower the rents, or maybe sometimes they might lower the rent depending on how much occupancy or vacancy we have. So the ones I self-manage every 2 years, I'll reassess. For the ones that my property managers manage, they reassess it every single year, whether to raise it or not. But from my experience, my ones in Oklahoma, the rents have been pretty stagnant, I would say, the past like 3 years. So they haven't really raised the rents on tenants, except if they leave and we just raise the rents a little bit. But it's kind of been consistent for the past 3 years, I would say, for my 26 unit, my 20 unit. For my single family homes in California, I've raised it maybe $200-300 to make sure I'm still below market by 10%. And the one in Huntsville, the first one I bought, the rents have actually been going down a little bit every year. Um, would you want to travel to Vegas and be in the iced coffee hour? If anyone knows Graham Stephan, or if Graham Stephan's on the podcast, let me know. I'll be happy to do a podcast with him, but I'm too small. I'm too small of a fish, so I'm not sure if he'd interview me. But if anyone has connections, let me know. I'll be happy to drive down to Vegas, go get some buffets, go to a club so I can feel like an old guy who's 35, seeing all these 20-year-olds go clubbing. But But yeah, I'd be interested in going to Vegas and being in the iced coffee hour if you have connections with Graham. So let me know. Send me an email. Go to my link tree, send me an email. Um, Mikey, managing my own doors in Central Florida, I learned that after 30 years of doing this, everyone lies to you, tenants, contractors, especially applicants. The sooner you accept, in my opinion. I completely agree. I've had tenants give me every single excuse under the moon to buy them time, to give them excuse to elicit an emotional response out of you. We are human, but like I had tenants saying, "Oh, like my rent's late because um, I just got a new job. Direct deposit's not set up. Oh, like I had to pay this unexpected bill. Oh, the check bounced. Oh, any excuse under the moon, right? Like one of my tenants right now, they owe me $4,000 over the year, and like they keep on saying like, oh, I'll make it a priority to pay you rent, but it's been a year now and I still haven't gotten it. So I could put them on a payment plan. But if they're really like, if their actions align with their words, they would like pay like, hey, I can only afford, I owe you 4,000, maybe I'll give you 200, I'll give you 300, I'll give you 4, like some sort of effort, right? But I'm pretty sure if I drive by that house, you'll see their house, like they're buying like new TVs or something. So like that's just the way it is. Um, tenants will lie to you, contractors will lie to you, property managers will lie to you, realtors will lie to you. People just do whatever to make it more convenient for them. So you get to bake that into owning a business, right? Like I'm sure whatever quotes I'm getting from contractors, they're being upcharged. My property manager gets it, they're upcharging me, and then now I'm paying, whatever significant upcharge just to get it done, right? So that's why if you manage your own doors, you kind of remove people lying from you at least, but you're still dealing with a lot of people. That's why I'm saying a lot of people, they buy a lot of real estate, they tend to exchange it into triple net absolute lease, and you own a Starbucks because now you're not dealing with any tenants, any toilets, you're just dealing with Starbucks. And they're a national corporate client. So like I may do that too. Maybe I'll just tender exchange and buy Starbucks down the street, own the building, and Starbucks will pay me rent every month, and it's triple net easier. Or I just sell it and dump it into the index S&P 500, right? So like that's I'm very aware that might be a possibility for me if I get sick of real estate, if I get burned bad one time, and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Like that's definitely a possibility, but I'm in a privileged position to be able to do that, right? So, even though you pay a bunch of taxes, even though you pay a bunch of capital gains tax, appreciation recapture, if you're paying taxes, it typically means you're making money. That's fortunate, right? So completely agree, Mikey. Thanks for dropping your wisdom, but I already kind of seen it after owning for 8 years. I had property managers lie to me, tell me whatever, tell me it's hard to evict people, steal from me, all the above. Only 8 years in the business. I'm sure if it's 30 years, even more so. Daniel asking, would I invest in Texas or Florida? For me, the answer is no. And why no? Because I don't want to deal with hurricanes. So I think getting insurance in Texas and Florida is a pain in the butt. And if you have a mortgage on the property, you're going to need a insurance on it. And a lot of times, a lot of investors that invest in Texas and Florida, a lot of syndicators, their insurance like doubled or tripled. So maybe you're paying 10K, you get renewed at 20K or 30K, and a lot of insurances are canceling, so you have no choice but to pay for it. I think in Texas they reassess your property taxes very frequently, so you have to constantly fight it. And I don't want to deal with hurricanes. Like the thought of having to deal with a hurricane hitting my house, my apartment in Houston, and then now I have to deal with 26 tenants needing a new place to stay, having to deal with renovations. It's just not for me. In Alabama, I have tornadoes. In Oklahoma, I think there's hail. So I don't mind dealing with a tornado. If a tornado hits my house, well, damn, right? But tornadoes are destructive in a smaller radius versus hurricanes has a larger radius. So that's why I don't like those areas. It's just the weather's too intense. California, we have fires, earthquakes. Oklahoma, it's hailstorms and tornadoes. Alabama, it's tornadoes, right? So pick what you want to deal with. But I don't want to deal with hurricanes. So that's why I don't want to invest in Texas or Florida. Could you make a lot of money investing in Texas and Florida? Yes. Is it for me? No. If I had unfair advantage there, would I invest there? Probably. Like I have one guy who owns I think 70 rentals in Houston, Texas, but he has a good system there, and he has a good property manager there, and he has good roofers there, and he has good insurance there. So works for him, but it wouldn't work for me coming in brand new. So, anyways, thanks for hopping onto this live stream before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving for those that I don't see tomorrow. If you let me know what questions you have, let me know what kind of topics you want me to discuss. I don't want to be repetitive. So if you have any fresh questions or topics, please throw them at me. Um, if you want to join my school community on a free trial, check that out. I'm trying to build a community of like-minded investors so that we can talk about all of our wounds from real estate, right? Because real estate is very lonely, and we're getting slapped in the face right now. So sometimes it's nice to have someone to hug and commiserate with, and misery loves company, right? So sometimes it's just nice to network and learn from each other's experience, see what insurance people you're using, what lenders you're using, and learn from each other, right? That's been very valuable for me joining a school community as well as creating my own. So if you want to do it, um, check it out. So if you want courses, you want coaching, click on my link tree. If you want to send me an email, click on my link tree. If you want to get a steadily landlord insurance quote to maybe save some money on your insurance, click on my link tree. If you want to use Lending One, which is who I use for my debt service coverage ratio lenders for investment loans, click on my link as well. So everything's in that link tree. See some questions here as I try to end. You guys don't want me to leave. So I feel the same about Texas and Florida. My daughter lives in Florida. Her boss owned a house in Homosassa. House is gone. Yes, I don't want to deal with hurricanes. No hurricanes. Not for Steven. No hurricanes. Would I consider moving out of California? I talked to my wife about this. My wife loves LA. So if my wife loves LA and I want a happy wife, I need to live in LA. But would I be open to living in Vegas in the future? I think the answer would be yes, to live somewhere cheaper because we want to travel, right? Like I don't mind living in Vegas, get something brand new for 400K, 500K, and then just travel to Southeast Asia for cheap. So I would consider, but it all depends on my wife. Huntsville does have tornadoes. Not as many, but there are tornadoes there. If you have 50K in cash, would I invest in stocks or real estate? If you want to deal with headaches and leverage, real estate. If you don't want a headache, just dump in S&P 500 and call it a day, right? Depends on you. But with 50K, you could probably buy a house for 20% down in Huntsville, maybe a little bit more. So that's what I would do. And once again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy your turkey, enjoy your family, and check out my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Peace.